Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today I want to talk about a video that I did a little while ago on a new technique or way to rig plastics out of Japan called the Inurig. And the Inurig is something that is just completely like flabbergasted me when I saw it. So what it is you take a straight tail, well, it doesn't have to be a straight tail worm. It could be any plastic worm that you want. And you rig it in a manner so that when you pull on the main line, it coils up and releases just like a natural eel or snake or worm would do out in the natural environment. It's really a very unique presentation, and one that just has me really my wheels spinning about how can I apply this to other baits? Are there things that I can modify to make this better? Are there things that I can take from this and apply to other techniques? There are so many different things and characteristics about this Inurig that is just new to me. And I have been tinkering with tackle my entire life. And I know I've seen other similar things like this. And there's some other baits on the market that have the same sort of features, but nothing that's as drastic as this. Nothing that will make the bait coil up and move like something you find in nature. I mean, that is just super, super realistic. You know, if you want to see how to build this, guys, I'll put the link to the video that I did on how to build this worm a little while ago. I'll put it at the end of this video for you guys to watch. But what I want to talk about today is one of the things, the most simplest things that I've seen from building this that I should apply to another technique. And it has to do with wacky rigging, guys. You know, when we talk about a wacky rig, there are so many different discussions that go on about where to place the hook. Do you use some sort of band that allows you to place the hook that creates the hook being put in parallel to the worm or perpendicular to the worm? You know, different number of bands, different things that you can utilize. But in most instances, not anything I've come across solves the issue of, one, preventing you from losing a lot of baits, two, allowing you to get the hook penetration that you want, and three, allowing you to potentially keep the worm out of the way of penetrating the hook through the fish's mouth. And one of the simplest things I've seen from this Inurig was just simply putting some tubing through the worm. And in this case, this is like medical tubing or just, you know, straight tubing you can get from the hardware store. I believe it's the 1/8 inch size. It's very small, so don't quote me on that, but I believe it's 1/8 inch size. You know, I use this for covering hooks during practice and shaking fish off, so I keep this in my boat at all times. But one of the things I've seen from doing the Inurig is, why not just glue in a piece of tubing through your favorite stick worm? This is a Max Scent, the General by Berkley. And I got to tell you guys, I mean, this will be the thing for me going forward for a couple of reasons. One, because you put that tubing in there, the tubing's the width of the worm. So it will not back up over that hook. That's as far as that tubing will slide, because the natural bend of your hook limits that tubing from going around. Yes, I can use a bunch of force and try to get it up and off, but it will not be easy, and I'd probably end up tearing the worm if I did that anyways. The other thing that I like about this is, depending on the hook you use and the size of the tube, you could use a tube that's big enough to slip up and over that hook. And in this case, you know, I could get it to do it with a lot of force, but I'm not going to do it just because, I mean, then it'll come off the hook. But if I used a hook with a smaller eye, I could slide it up. So if you're fighting a fish, that could slide up your line at that point, which would keep it out of the way. The last thing is, this is the way I like my hooks to come out of my worms. I like the hook point to come out at a perpendicular angle to my worm. I do not like it when the hook is coming out of the worm. Like if you use one single band, the hook would be parallel to your worm. I do not think you get as good of hookups with that, and I think you get a lot more times where the worm will come up and catch on the end of the hook if it's rigged that way. So the thing that's the last thing about this that I love is because you glue that tubing in, and I'll show you here real quick how to make one. I mean, it'll take no time at all. That tubing is now glued in that worm, so that worm is got the most strength possible from getting torn. So if you pull on that, the only way that that's going to rip is if the entire worm, half a worm, rips, which is going to take way more force than, you know, than if you were just skin hooking it or doing anything else. You know, that worm is locked on there. It's not coming off unless you take it off or it gets completely ripped in half. So it's just a simple fix to a problem that I think a lot of us have when it comes to wacky rigging. And it's one of those things you pre-make up, you grab your bag, you pre-make them up, they're ready to go. It's a simple fix. So I'll show you how I do it right here, guys. All right, so you grab your favorite stick worm. I've got the General here, and all you got to do is grab your tubing. And I really prefer this tubing because it is extremely durable. Some people will probably want to use little stirs, drink stirs, or small straws. Anything that would work, but I do really like this tubing, and it's something I keep in my boat anyways. So what I'll do in this case is wherever I want to put the tubing, where I would normally put my hook, which for me, I usually choose right below the egg sac, I'm just going to push that right through the center of the worm. So it pops through just like that. You take a little bit of super glue, put it around the edge of your tubing, slide your worm back so that it's flush with the tubing. You can cut off any excess there. And at this point, I would normally let it dry, but instead I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off. And I can take my worm. And there I go. I've got my hole centered in the wacky worm where I want it to be. And I'll let that dry. It'll be good to go. You can pre-rig a bunch of these, put them back in the pack. No worries, you slide onto the hook whenever you're ready. And my guess is that you will save a considerable amount of worms by doing this. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks coming out tomorrow.